All right, so if you're building APIs with FastAPI, one of the first big questions you're going to hit is, how do I get information from the client? And the answer usually boils down to this fundamental choice. Do I use a path parameter or a query parameter? Look, getting this right isn't just about some picky syntax rule. It's the foundation of a clean, professional API that people will actually enjoy using. Okay, so let's set the scene, right? Your API has all this data, users, products, whatever it is. A client out there needs to ask for something specific. How do they actually communicate that request? Well, it all comes down to how you structure the URL they send over. You know, when you boil it all down, the difference is actually beautifully simple. Path parameters, think of them like a dart. You're aiming for one single specific target, bullseye. But query parameters, they're more like a net. They're using them to search, sort, and filter through a whole collection of items. All right, let's dig into that, starting with our first player in the game, the path parameter. Its whole reason for being is precision. I mean, it's all about pinpointing one single, unique resource and absolutely nothing else. So here's the big idea, the thing you've got to remember. A path parameter is literally a variable part of the URL path itself. It's not some optional add-on, it's baked right into the address, making it a required piece of the puzzle. Let's look at a super classic example, /users/123. That number 123, right there, that's the path parameter. And it's not a suggestion, it's a command. It's telling the API, hey, get me the user with the ID of exactly 123, no one else. And honestly, the way FastAPI handles this is it's so slick. In your code, you just pop some curly braces into the path, right? Like /users/user_ID. FastAPI is smart. It sees those braces and immediately knows, okay, that's a variable. And then, this is the cool part, it automatically connects that piece of the URL to the function argument with the exact same name. It's a direct, required link between the URL and your code. Okay, so that's path parameters. Now, let's switch gears and talk about our second tool, the query parameter. And if the path parameter is like a scalpel, super precise, then the query parameter is your Swiss Army knife. It is all about flexibility. Its job is to sort, search, and filter a list of results. And here is the absolute key difference. Query parameters are optional, key value pairs, and they always show up after a question mark in the URL. That question mark, that's basically the universal signal on the web that says, okay, the main address is done. Now here come some options. This example right here shows it perfectly. We've got our base path /products, then boom, the question mark. Everything after that is a query. So we have category equals books. That tells the API, hey, only show me books. And that little ampersand, the and, lets us chain on another one. Limit equals 10. So give me books, but only the first 10. So how does FastAPI deal with this? Well, it's all about making things optional and easy. Basically, in your function, any argument that you define that isn't already in the path, FastAPI just assumes it's a query parameter. It's that simple. You can give it a default value, which pretty much turns it into an optional setting that the client can either use or just totally ignore. This gives them so much power to shape the response they get back. All right, so we've seen them both on their own. Now it's time for the main event. Let's put them head-to-head in a side-by-side showdown to make this difference totally crystal clear. Okay, this table pretty much says it all. Let's break it down. First up, purpose. Path parameters are all about identifying one specific resource. Query parameters, they're for filtering or sorting a whole collection of resources. Next, you have the URL structure. The path parameter is baked right into the path itself, like the 123 in /users/123. But the query parameter always lives after that question mark as key value pairs. And finally, the most important part, when to use them. Simple. Use a path parameter when you need to grab one unique item by its ID. Use a query parameter anytime you're sifting, sorting, or filtering a list of many items. So, why are we obsessing over this? Why does any of this really matter? Because choosing the right tool for the job is what separates a confusing API from one that's just intuitive, one that's predictable and honestly a joy for other developers to work with. It's about creating a clean blueprint that just makes sense. So let's nail down this blueprint. Use path parameters for things that are required to identify a specific resource, like an item ID. and use query parameters for all the optional stuff, like filtering by status. And if you want a really simple way to remember it, think of it like this. The path is the address to a specific folder on your computer. It gets you to one and only one place. The query parameters, those are just the optional filters you can apply to see what's inside that folder, like show me only the PDFs or sort by date. That's it. That simple distinction is what makes a great API just click. So we've laid out the rules, the blueprint for a clean, predictable API. But, with any design principle, the real sign of mastery is knowing when it's okay to break the rules. So I'm going to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Now that you know the rules for path and query parameters, when might it actually be smart to break them?